Konnichiwa.
Welcome to the Jandals in Japan podcast.
Kia ora, Catherine.
Konnichiwa, Jayne. From
New Zealand.
Aotearoa.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone from Aotearoa, New Zealand.
We're not in Japan right now, but we've left a little episode for you to enjoy while we're away.
Yeah, we have entered for the second time, I believe it is, Jayne, the New Zealand Podcast Awards, or is it the third time?
For the Jandals, it's the second.
Oh, Jandals the second time. Right.
Yeah.
So Jandals in Japan has entered into the New Zealand Podcast Awards 2023 under the business category. I had a little look on the website for the New Zealand Podcast Awards. It's their third year running it, and they've reached an audience of over 15 million people in the last 2 years, apparently, having hundreds of submissions from Kiwi podcasters. Well, we are in that 15 million, and we are submitted this year. We want you to hear what we put together. Jayne, tell us a bit more.
Part of it is that you have to send in a 15-minute highlight reel of your show, and you're only allowed to choose 5 episodes. So we just chose 5 fun or interesting moments from our most recent episodes. It has to be in the last year. So
it was hard to decide, wasn't it? Really, it took us a while to decide who do we put in there, what comments, what little gems do we want to put through as our submission. It was hard.
So this is what we put together in hopes of attracting the judges' attention and making the first, second, or third. That would be really awesome. We were in the top 5 last year, weren't we?
That was great.
Yeah, that was so exciting. So anyway, we thought it would be fun to share this with you, give you something to listen to, to tide you over until our next episode comes out. This is our out of office episode.
Out of office. Here we go. Yes. So we submitted, and when do they actually choose the finalists, Jayne?
The announcements will be made on the 30th of November, I believe, around there.
Brilliant. So as well as us submitting our submission for the Best Business Award, our listeners here can vote for us independently, can't they, on the listener's choice vote. And this is one where you can just simply submit Jandals in Japan, a link to the Jandals in Japan podcast, and that's it. Bingo. You can then submit, and then that's one more vote for you choosing Jandals in Japan as your best podcast that you love out of New Zealand. Because we call this out of New Zealand because we're New Zealanders, right?
Well, it's made by New Zealanders for New Zealanders.
By New Zealanders for New Zealanders. And that is open until, I believe, until the end of November as well.
Okay. So, yeah, if you're listening to this, please look in the show notes. You'll find the link for the New Zealand Podcast Awards and how you can enter. It's very quick. It'll take you 1 to 2 minutes max. We hope you enjoy our submission, and we'll be back again soon with a regular episode.
Okay. See you later.
Bye. What has made Japan one of Zespri's top markets? What's happening here?
Okay. I mean, we have a long history, and our biggest market is Europe and then Japan. That's it, right? And then Europe is the more like a volume market, where they have the biggest volume. But price is less expensive compared to Japan. So that Japan is the one that what we call the premium market among Zespri growers, right? And then Zespri committed themselves to invest a lot to the those market, especially Japanese market. I'm going to talk about the marketing, for instance, and then they are spending a lot of money for their marketing. And then when it comes to the developing the distribution, they are very patient and spend a lot of time and money and energy to develop the distribution. So right now, we achieve almost 100% of the supermarket distribution, which is very, very difficult.
Whoa, 100%.
Yes.
Well, that's why I could find your Ruby Red in my local Fukushima
supermarket.
Right.
So Zespri is every supermarket.
Yes, throughout the country. So my experience, and it's really difficult for a foreign company to achieve, this level of the distribution.
Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing.
That is incredible. Let's just soak that in. That is amazing that you can do that. There wouldn't be many other products
No,
or
I
produce that
don't
can manage
see.
that?
Yeah, I don't see. This is
Ooh.
very, very rare.
Right.
Yeah, of course, the banana is available anywhere, but many competitors, Dole, Del Monte, or Chiquita, Sumifu and other players, right? But Zespri, I mean, in terms of kiwi fruits, so everybody thinks that the Zespri and kiwi fruits is Zespri, or Zespri is kiwi fruits, yeah?
Yeah.
So what do you think's the key then for success for Zespri in Japan? What is your key to success?
Couple of things, successful factor is I always think that first of all is a product, amazing products produced in New Zealand, right? And the taste is good, and then also the quality is very, very stable, right? Also the storage is the another key factor. When you deal with fresh fruits, it's perishable. But kiwi fruits, once a year we have harvest. But you can store the fruits in the controlled environment. That's the New Zealand's storage, and then it lasts almost 8 to 9 months. That's why we can do some promotional activity with retailers. Retailer have some flyer, for instance, and then we can be listed in a flyer because it's predictable, or TV commercial. We can commit to the TV commercial 2 months, from now because the supply is stable.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So product and supply side is really, really key in terms of the dealing with the fresh fruits.
So that's number one. Product.
Yeah, that's number one thing. And then the second thing is I think that the distribution or in stores. Yeah. So as I said that in order to distribute the fruits to the as maximum consumers touch points, which is retailers, right? And the other thing is I separates the distribution is a quantity of the distribution and then quality of the distribution, and then quantity wise 100%, but the quality wise how you can expand the shelf space or shelf location at the supermarket, so that compared to the several years ago, our shelf space gets double or even triple. So that's and then also the location. The banana occupies the front end before, but when it comes to the high season, which is May, June, July, the kiwi fruits is coming to the very front line of the fruit section. So that's really key.
Yep. When I walk in the door of my supermarket, I see always Zespri kiwi fruits. I can see that so many sort of things that would work well together, and the Japanese would appreciate your long-term vision, your value of furusato, as they call it here in Japan, which is your hometown. Have you noticed that as well? Like people will always ask you, where are you from? And they're always from somewhere. It might not be where they live, but they have their connection back to their hometown. And they're always going back there like 2 or 3 times a year to maintain their family graves and pay respect to their ancestors. So there's so many things that are similar. Is there anything that you were like, whoa, we're so similar, but also really different, things that popped up in your dealings with Japanese businesses?
I did wonder because I wasn't, too sure how they might perceive a woman, coming to the meetings and, sort of being the boss. So I was very cognizant of that. So I said to my colleague, and who's Seishi Yamabushi, he works with us at Wakatū, and I said to him, Seishi-san, from a protocol perspective and coming into meetings and things like that, what do we do? And he was quite clear, no, Miriana-san, you're the boss. But, I think it's just, I'm very respectful when I'm in other people's, places. That we respect their protocols and how they want to conduct things. And so there was that aspect. And then, of course, when you reciprocate and they come here, and then I'm having to say to Seishi, well, when they come here, their first port of call will be to the marae, because we have to welcome them into they're part of our family. So that's part of our tradition and protocols. So I would hope to think that, I think we've been received well under their tradition. And to be fair, now customers taking us out, I think what you said, Jayne, I've been to different places around Japan now, and visited, really cultural, significant spaces and places that they belong to. So when they've come to us and I take them around on the land, they get a feeling. And then I notice the next time I go back, might be a meeting in the office, but now we're out. And I think that's been our point of difference. What I've noticed is we've been able to achieve a lot more quicker because of that value of manaakitanga, of caring, of hosting, respect. I think that's really, I've noticed a massive difference just in terms of, because people go, it takes so much longer. How come you did that? You got there, and I was like, I'm not sure, but I think it's just, again, it's, that manaakitanga.
Yeah, and you probably heard that expressed as omotenashi in Japan. And there's that whole similarity and connection in those two words, I believe. What's Japan taught you about rugby and about you as a leader?
I think it's a hard one, but Japan has taught me about rugby is, in Japan, rugby's not necessarily the number one thing. But what comes before rugby is kaisha, is daigaku, is the universities, is what's important, and rugby is the second thing. And if you think about the company culture compared to back home, it's about company, so lots of challenges around getting players released from companies because they've got working commitments, or this is to play for their national team, or they've got rugby commitments into companies. So what teaches me is as a coach or as a leader here is if I don't understand that, I'm just going to be butting heads with everybody, and I'm not going to win that. And that's a wee bit which I refer to as boiling the jug, So it's been times where I've had to jump on a plane and fly somebody, and and the Japanese face-to-face is powerful, where we're basically, you're asking for permission to get a player to support and play for Japan, where in New Zealand it's a professional code. Rugby is the number one. I'm not sure whether I answered your question, but that's the sort of thing that goes on here.
You need to know when to pick what to do as a leader, right? Do I go to Japan and ask for this permission? Do I back? You've got to analyze and sort of judge that in the situation.
Well, I just know that company's first, so that's a cultural problem. Right. Can't be fixed by a rugby problem, What comes first is kaisha, so if the guys have got a commitment to the company, doesn't matter what I say, this is the way it is here. So, and we've been times where we've had a test match the following week, and there's a pre-season game between two company teams, and the players have to play the pre-season game, which means before they come and represent Japan.
Match. Oh my goodness!
So year one, can't believe it. Frustrating. Year 7, depth.
Yep.
Yeah.
Adapt. Keep moving. Don't get too frustrated, because that affects your leadership.
Right. Well, it's good you figured that out, right? Like some people would be
still
just
trying
like,
to figure it out.
Why is this not working?
Yeah.
Why
keep trying pushing, right? There's no point.
Yeah, and work with. I've got some really good Japanese colleagues that support me, so that's probably a really key thing for me. So I talk about Brownie, but behind Brownie and myself, there's some really important people.
You notice that the kaisha is number one, right? So you're not trying to change that system. You have to work with the system of kaisha as number one, and I'm trying to get the best team for Japan together, but kaisha is number one. So how am I going to do that? So you're boiling the jug, right? Rather than boiling the ocean, which is trying to, why is kaisha number one? Why isn't the national team number one, as it would be in my own country?
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you start there, then everything starts to make a little bit more sense.
Your greatest learning, do you think, from Japan?
Probably the biggest thing is that Yamabushi philosophy of uketamo. And so just I accept. And so it's not just like your master tells you to do something, you accept and you do it. There's part of that, but it's much deeper. Like, for example, so we've been up Mount Gasan when there's been a thunderstorm. There is actually like a thunderstorm while we're walking. So I've been above the clouds and seen lightning.
Looking down on the lightning happening,
yeah.
Right? Oh my goodness.
That's always scary, but like you kind of just uketamo,
Just trust,
like,
right? Your trust.
yeah,
It's kind of
exactly,
like
trust.
a trust between you and this master person, right? That he's
Well,
going to
yeah,
look out
yeah,
for you,
yeah.
and he's got what he's doing is in your best interests,
Yes.
and you're going to do
yeah,
your best to support, follow along, right?
yeah.
And
yeah.
this is what happens in Japanese companies. This is like every day of the
Yeah.
week, people are
You
like,
just kind of
"Hi,
go with the flow.
please move your entire family to Sweden," you know, like whatever. We see that a lot, whereas for a New Zealander, it's like, hang on a minute, I would like to use my personal decision-making skills here to decide about myself.
Yeah.
And it really does rub up against this Japanese
It
culture
does. It does.
I accept and just go along, it looks like going with the flow, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there is like there is a certain extent that I think it's okay to say no, but in general, just accepting things that have happened and moving forward.
So what's some things that have surprised you about actually being in business for yourself in Japan as opposed to just sort of working in Japan?
Some things are made extremely difficult and some things are extremely easy. For example, adventure tourism in New Zealand is highly regulated in terms of qualifications, resource consent, and these sort of things. There's none of that in Japan. Zero.
Whoa.
So you guys could go out tomorrow and start a rafting company. No worries.
No way.
You have to compete with you, Mike.
Here you go. Game on. Let's go.
Watch out, Jandals in Japan rafting.
Is that right? Because that was what we were going to ask you, was the regulatory stuff you must have gone through. But wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah, and that was something that we really want, the regulation, because it's sort of a little bit of a barrier to entry, so every Tom, Dick, and Joe Tanaka can't sort of just set up a company, which is sort of the situation in Japan. There's 200 rafting companies in Japan now, which is an insane amount. And of those ones that will be on international standards, would probably be something around 10 to 15. And that's quite a shock when you tell people from outside Japan, because they have this image that Japan is so highly regulated, it's very, very difficult to do anything. And with some industries, for sure, but adventure tourism is very, very new in Japan. There's no permission system for doing things in national parks, so you can just go in and really sort of, as long as you're not cutting down trees or destroying anything, you can pretty much do what you want. So once again, that's not a good system at all as well. But I mean, at the start, as I said, when I was 20, 21 years old, it's just like I just want to sit on the back of a raft and talk to chicks and drink beer and have barbecues. But as you progress, through the industry, you learn more, and you get that deeper connection with nature, and you start to think more about, why do you do this?
Thanks for listening. Make sure you check out our guests' links in the show notes.
This podcast is brought to you today by Catherine O'Connell Law and PodLaunch with Jayne. If you have a great story you think should be on the show, come and find us on LinkedIn or Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time.
Mata ne!